My name is Sandy Ross Patton.
My name is Zuccarello. One of my major area of practice is patient presenting with brain strokes, and subarachnoid hemorrhage is part of the brain strokes. Many patients with subarachnoid hemorrhage have ruptured aneurysm, and unfortunately, many patients can die from a ruptured aneurysm, but many patients unfortunately survive. And the major problem with the patient surviving hemorrhage is long-term recovery. And they are in the hospital. We provide as much support as we can in the hospital. And it looks like they do great, but at the end of the day, they look really good, but they don't feel well. And this concept of them feeling well has been always in the back of my mind, how we can make the recovery better. And one of the possible, not the only solution, of course, one of the possible solutions is to have somebody who has the same experience, better experience, helping you in navigating you through this difficult time and try to overcome the problems. So the support group became a project of mine, and in the late 90s, early 2000, I started more seriously thinking how I can do it until I met Cindy. And Cindy was a patient of mine in early 2000, 2001, and she experienced a subarachnoid hemorrhage. And she and I had a very frank conversation with Cindy, I'm sure remember well, and I will ask you, Cindy, just to tell Kayla
Yes.
about our conversation.
I was in the follow-up with Dr. Zuccarello, and I had been on the computer and researching and trying to find some place that I could go and talk to people who had experienced the same thing. When it's in your brain, my husband said it best when I got out of the hospital, you look okay, you walk okay, you talk okay, but people aren't going to know you are not okay. And I was not okay. I had no sense of time. I had no initiative. And when I followed up in one of my meetings with Dr. Zuccarello, an appointment, I asked him point blank, isn't there a support group for people who've had this? And that's when he told me he knew of one in Boston. I was able to go to that meeting in Boston, and for the first time, I felt like, oh, I am with people who understand what it's like to be in your body and think everything's different.
And I have to add one more piece of information about this. Sandy was in my office, and she was complaining correctly, so reporting rather than complaining. Memory issues, don't be fatigued, not be willing to go back to work. And if I remember correctly, you were working for Delta
Yes.
company.
Yes.
And so I said, and then she asked me about, any other places like where support groups. And I said, what about Sandy, if you start a support group and I will help you? And that's just the way it was. Since she worked for Delta, you have some tickets, I remember, and they were access at least tickets. Okay, go to Boston, like you said, where they have a support group. And that's the way we started.
My company was very, very supportive of me because I literally had been carried out of the office as a result of my hemorrhage, and they were very supportive. I was able to go to Boston. When I came back, I gave it a lot of thought, and I think I wrote Dr. Zuccarello a letter and said, yes, I will work on this, and that was the beginning. It's just the fact that I still get emotional, that you're able to talk to somebody who says, I know what you're feeling. That means so much. Sorry.
No, I mean, you are absolutely correct, and nothing is more powerful than to be reassured that
Yes.
today feel well, but if you're patient, if you work hard, you're going to be feeling much better.
Yes.
You may not be the same like you were before that,
Yes.
not 100%, but very, very close.
Yes.
As close as possible. And the support group benefited tremendously of two other ladies. There were two nurses working for the Cincinnati Stroke team.
Yes.
Nurses, both very committed to patient care, but
Yes.
very committed to improve the recovery of any patient with any strokes.
Yes.
And they were incredible. That they just did the impossible
Yes.
to help us in building the support group.
Yeah.
And then, of course, came as always, the financial aspect of that, which we went through. A few hoops with the
Yes.
Ohio, the state of Ohio rather, and the state of Kentucky. We had a grant for the state of Kentucky just to jumpstart
Yes.
the support group, to create a database, to have the nonprofit status also, and so forth. So the things that developed beautifully, and then came Roberta Holden in the picture, and Roberta was my secretary for many years, and she embraced the support group like nobody else has ever done before. The heart and soul of the support group, the member of the advisory board, all the members of the support group have been magnificent.
Yes.
And the bottom line is, we started, Cindy, in 2002. Essentially.
2002, yes. First meeting.
And today is 2019. And one day, we had a very small, if you remember, fundraising at the university facility.
Yes.
And I was told the youth support group probably will last 1 or 2 years. Well, the support group
Here we are.
has lasted 17 years and is healthy.
Yes.
And definitely progressing. And this is not. And sorry to say this, it's not because of you and me.
Oh, no.
This is because of the dedication of the caregivers, the patients,
Yes.
and anybody else around us. And
Yes.
and this is the best really project that I remember in the past 20 years.